The time is now 5 o'clock. I call this meeting in the Granbury Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present. This meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections. 551.07D, discussion of purchase, exchange, lease, and value of real property. 551.074, discussion of officers, employees, and personnel matters. 551.076, considering the deployment, specific occasions for, and implementation of security personnel or devices. The time is now 5:01. Good evening, everyone. The time is now 6 o'clock, and we are now reconvened into open session. Before we have our invocation, I just wanted to say a few things. First off, you'll see some familiar faces up here. Even though we've had the election, we will not canvass votes until Thursday. Because of the time of the election, then we have to wait 10 days, and then we have Thanksgiving coming. That is why we had this meeting before our new members come in. So the new members will end up going through orientation on December 1st, and then they will be sworn in at our next regular meeting, which will be December 12th. The other thing is, I had some people make comments that they're having a hard time hearing in the back when we're talking up here and when people are at the podium. So we are going to make an effort to be closer to the microphones. I ask those who are going to speak at the podium to please do the same. And those that are having side conversations, if you can keep them to a dull roar, it would be very helpful for the people in the back. And I thank you all for your understanding. Now we will go into our invocation, which I will have. Please bow your head with me. Papa God, we thank you for the many blessings that you have showered on us. We thank you for the freedom we enjoy in our country, and we ask you to bless our veterans who have sacrificed to keep us free. Lord, as we prepare for the Thanksgiving holidays, I pray that you help the students to focus and the teachers to have patience. May the week off be safe and a refreshing break. Father, I ask you to give us wisdom as we make decisions for our school district tonight. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. And we will now have our pledges.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, we need to introduce two of our finest here at GMS. First of all, thank you for having us. These students were nominated by their staff members and because of their dedication to academics and good character. So I've got two students here tonight. I've got Wyatt Blackman and I've got Ruby Portman. I apologize, the third student was a little sick and under the weather, so Wyatt Duvall was not able to be here, but I'd like for Wyatt to introduce his family that's here tonight.
Can we bring it down? Good evening, my name is Wyatt Blackman. I'm here today with my mom and dad, Brent and Sarah Blackman. My favorite thing at GMS is the teachers at GMS. I also like my pre-athletics class. It's the best. What I see myself doing in the future is going to Texas A&M University to be a Texas game warden. Thank you.
Next, I have an award-winning poet, Miss Ruby Portman. Ruby, if you'll introduce your family, please.
Good evening. My name is Ruby Portman. I'm here today with my aunt, Lorena Gordon. The best thing about GMS is the teachers. I also like to write poetry in my English class. What I see myself doing in the future is attending college to be a teacher while moving to Maine or Ohio.
Thank y'all. Ruby, Wyatt. All right. We're going to go right.
Come here. Meet him right here in the front.
And can we have the family stand up so we can see them? All right, now we're going to move on into Achievement Spotlight. And first, we're going to have Lieutenant Colonel Lloyd Leitz. Is it Leitz or Lights? Litz? Okay. Okay, Mr. Ross, are you going to be presenting today? It looks like it.
Right. Good evening, Board. It's my honor this evening to be here to introduce you our Veterans Day Essay Contest winners. Lieutenant Colonel Letts was supposed to be here today to tell you a little bit about the Military Officers Association of America, who provided the awards for these kids to, I think they got a $100 gift card. I think that's right. Yeah, okay. So our thanks to that organization for supporting this Veterans Day Essay Contest. At the high school, we had two winners. We had the winner of the student body, who was the district's winner as well, and so that award went to Skylar Mitchell. I don't think Skylar is here this evening. Are you, Skylar? Going once? No sale. Skylar was recognized at our Veterans Day assembly on Friday, which was a fantastic event, and he was able to actually read his essay to us at that time. So several members of the community and some of you were there, and a lot of his peers at GHS were able to hear his essay. So congratulations to Skylar and his family. Diana Cook, a member of our awesome JROTC, she won the JROTC version of that contest, and she was not able to be present on Friday because she was visiting a college, but she is here this evening. So, Diana, would you join me here?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And now you're going to recite your essay, yes?
Yes, sir.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Congratulations to you. Skylar, I'll take his, yeah. Okay.
It's Kylie.
Of course, the R30 is. Hey, First Sergeant, will you come be in a picture with her?
Thank you.
Do we have parents of our students out there? If so, please stand so we can recognize you. No parents.
First Sergeant here to.
We have First Sergeant, that's just like a parent. All right, now we're going to move on to Ms. Peterson, introducing GHS DECA chapter officers.
Good evening. evening, Madam President. School board members, Dr. Glenn, my name is Kylie Peterson. I am the DECA advisor at Granbury High School. DECA is our business student organization, and last year we revived the DECA chapter at Granbury High School for the first time in about 20-ish years. It's kind of unknown. I took 7 very trusting students to district, thinking, you know what, it's all for the experience. Of the 7 that competed, 6 went to state. Okay, not bad. Of the 6 at state, we had 1 go to international. So this year we are revved and ready to go. So I'm not going to speak. I'm going to let my DECA co-president speak. November is National DECA Month. So they are tasked by the national office to do things like go to school board, go to Rotary, go to city council. So this is all about them. So this time I'm going to ask Aiden Davila to come up, and he's going to start and then pass the mic on.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson, Madam School Board President, GISD School Board, and Dr. Glenn. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. Tell you a little bit about Granbury High School's DECA program. Last year was our first year competing in roughly 20 years or so. So it was kind of a big deal for us all. We went in there not really knowing what we were going to do or how we were going to do, but we did very well. As you heard, 7 went to state, or 6 went to state. 7 competed at international, and it's very good to hear this year that we have over 45 people competing in DECA versus the 7 that went last year. So, thank you. As it currently stands, DECA, myself, I am the co-president of management, and we have several events that we're currently running, including our canned food drive, our Stephenville two-step, is that correct? And then we have as well our career fair. So those are the 3 main things that we're focused on moving forward with DECA this year. And before I pass the mic to our other co-president, Amy, I'd like to personally thank Ms. Peterson for her leadership and being able to get us as far as she did, because without Ms. Peterson, I do not think DECA would have made a return, nonetheless a successful return that we see now. So thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. And now, thank you. And now I'd like to pass the microphone to Amy Hernandez, co-president of marketing.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Hernandez. I was recognized last year for competing at state, so thank y'all for having me last year and this year. As Aiden said, I'm the co-president of membership and marketing, and our goals for our chapter this year were to increase our membership by 50%, which we did. We went from 20 active members to over 45, and another one of our goals was to get our school store school-based enterprise certified through the National DECA, and we're working on that. We're hoping to have that and get that award, and with that earns us seats at international, and if we win those seats at international from doing everything we have to do, we get to go to International Thrive Academy, which is Academy of Leadership. We'll take the students, and we'll get to go learn about leadership in DECA and business. And then competitions, district's going to be held January 28th. We're hoping to take a lot of people. Like Aiden mentioned, last year we took 7 to district, and then 6 to state, and then 1 to international. So we're hoping to rise those numbers. Those numbers go up this year. Everyone in the anchor, I'm sure y'all know the school store. Our goal is to go to Disney and, as they say, get lightsabers from is it Epcot? I don't know. They just want lightsabers. This year's state will be held in Dallas, and then internationals are in Orlando, and we get a Disney day, so we're working hard for that Disney day. We appreciate your continued support, and we will continue to make chapter-breaking goals and make the Granbury Business Pathway dominate. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, now I'm going to introduce my officers that came with me. Again, most of these kids have not competed. They don't even know what DECA really looks like. Again, they're trusting, so thank you all for doing that. Thank you, parents, for believing in us. So Amy Hernandez, as you met, she's our co-president. Y'all can stand up when I call your name. Lydia Strickland, she's my treasurer. Bryson Sparks is Vice President of Chapter Campaigns. Aiden, again co-president, you've heard him. Who's next? Alan, stand up Alan. Alan is our Vice President of Recruitment. And then there's Gavin, he is Vice President of Competitive Events. Okay, y'all are too tall. Diorlin, he's my Vice President of Community Service, and Ryan Baker is also Vice President of Recruitment, and they are the best of the best when I say they are the best. So, thank y'all.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you about this. I think those are all yours. I'm so worried about Dorland's name. It's okay. It was a hard one. Was it right?
And while they're getting their picture taken, do we have any families out there? If so, please stand up so we can recognize you. And I would be remiss if I did not say thank you, thank you, thank you to Ms. Peterson and all the work she has done. She has done a fabulous job. We have some great educators in our schools district, and Ms. Kylie is one of the best. I really do appreciate everything she does. That's right, she is second generation. Your mom and dad were pretty good too. Okay, next up, Mr. Ross for the GHS Cross Country Runner.
We're actually going to let his coach introduce him.
I think it would be great if Ms. Ward talked about this. She is an amazing
I tried to get him to do it, but he was like, no, you're the coach. You have to get up there and do it. So
good job.
Thank you so much, board, for having us. I am Amber Ward. I'm the head cross-country coach and the head girls track coach. I am here to talk about Brian. Brian Haley, he's a freshman in our cross-country program this year. He placed in the top 5 at every race that we went to this year, and that is a lot of our races we compete against 6A schools also. So he was not only running against 5A, but 6A kids also. At the district meet, he got 2nd overall, so that qualified him for the regional meet in Lubbock along with our boys cross-country team. We got to Lubbock, he placed 11th there, qualifying for the state meet. At the state meet in Round Rock, he ran against 151 5A boys, and he got 20th overall out of 151 boys. And he is a freshman. If y'all didn't catch that, he is a freshman, so 3 more years. He's a great kid. He has great work ethic, a great attitude, so we're super excited about that. And thank y'all so much for having us. And this is Brian Haley.
And are Brian's parents here today by any chance? If so, please stand up so we can recognize you. All right, and our last achievement spotlight is Mr. Ross again, GHS
Okay, I'm going to invite Coach McLaurin and Coach Lane to come up and introduce Jackson Robinson. Jackson is I think you're a junior, right? Yes. So we've got another year with Jackson. He is first team Infinity All-American athlete. I was told to correct that, first team Infinity, because apparently we get in trouble or something if we... But they're going to explain just a little bit about how Jackson won this honor and why it's so great that he is in this position for our school. So, Coach McLaurin.
Hello, I'm Kathleen McLaurin. Well, thank you for having us, and this is Coach Lane and Jackson. Jackson started out, there were 2,000 applicants that started in Infinity, and so then they narrowed it down to 80. From those 80, they had to send in a video, and then they called me and asked me all about Jackson, and he had to send in videos of him cheering and tumbling and stunting and all kinds of things. And he's just an amazing young man, and there's only 20 out of the whole country that are Infinity All-Americans, and Jackson is one of them. Jackson, show us why you are one. Come on, Jackson, do it. Do it, Jackson. He's going to show us why he's an Infinity All-American, and he has on regular tennis shoes and jeans and can still do this.
I am so glad he did that.
Just like I can run with that other kid. His trial is really like, child is like you.
And are Jackson's parents here today?
Yes.
Yeah, I know Ronnie. Ronnie, is that your grandson? Yes. Wow, that is awesome. Very good. All right, who says it's not entertaining to come to a school board meeting? All right, we are done with our achievement spotlight, and we will now move on to the public hearing for first report. Mr. Whitefield.
Thank you, Madam President. This is our annual first report that we provide to the public. We're going to start off with just kind of describing what is the first. First is the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. It was adopted by TEA in response to Senate Bill 875 in the 76th legislature in 1999. The primary goal of the school's first is to achieve quality performance and transparency in the management of school district financial resources. The report that we're required to present to you has the district's financial management performance rating provided by TEA, the district's current financial management reporting, sorry, my clicker's not working. Thank you. Next one. Got it. I apologize. The district's current financial management performance rating compared to the previous year's rating, and additional information that the Commissioner of Education required in 2007 under Title 19, Chapter 109. And that is the copy of the superintendent's contract that is posted on the website, and then certain financial summaries that pertain to the superintendent and the school board. The 2022 ratings are based on the 2021 rating data and are published on TEA's website. Within 2 months of receiving that rating, which we received the first of this month, we have to have this public hearing and distribute it to the attendees, the management report. And the management report is in the back corner back there, right behind Mr. Mueller, and anybody can pick that up back there. We're going to move on to the current rating system is based on 20 indicators with an assignment of A through F. 7 through 15 are with points, and 1 through 4 are with a pass or fail. Number 1 would be that your annual financial review was submitted to TEA by the deadline. Was there an unmodified opinion, which means that the auditor is able to satisfactorily conclude that there are no material misstatements in the financials? And was the district in compliance with all debts at the end of the fiscal year? And then number 4 is, did the district make timely payments to the IRS, TRS, and Workforce Commission, which we did all of those. The contents of the report will have the district's rating, the district's status detail printed off of the TEA's website. It'll have the prior year comparison, and it'll have how the ratings are assessed, have a glossary of terms, and then the required disclosures that we spoke about from 2007, which are the superintendent's contract, which is actually published on the website, so it does not have to be in the report, the reimbursement received by superintendent or board members, any outside compensation received by the superintendent, and then any gifts received by an executive officer in that fiscal year of 2021, and any business transactions between the school board or the school district, or any other information that would be pertinent financial information. The first report ensures that Texas public schools are held accountable for the quality of their financial management practices and that they improve these practices each year. So how did we do? We scored a yes on all first 4 indicators. We scored a 96 out of a possible 100 points on indicators 7 through 15 and 18 and 19, achieving the highest rating possible under the current first school system, which is superior. Out of the 20 years that it's been scored, Granbury ISD has had 18 superior ratings. 1 year it was a pass-fail, and 1 year we received the above standard achievement, which was in 2010. So every other year for 18 years we've had above or superior. So that is the end of the hearing. The reports are in the back if anybody wants one, and I'll answer any questions that you would like to ask.
And then just a quick comment that we appreciate your leadership in our business office and the hard work you and your staff put in and day out. Certainly it sounds easy to have superior achievement 18 of 20 years, but we know a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we're in compliance, and that's tough when you're dealing with state and federal money all the time. So well done by you and your team.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the superintendent report. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. The first order of business tonight will be to recognize outgoing trustee Paula McDonald. We have enjoyed our time with Paula McDonald on the board. Not only did she bring experience as a former teacher, she's also a mom and a business leader here in our community. During her tenure on the board, she helped us reduce the tax rate. She advocated for raises for our staff. She helped champion the renovations that took place at Bronner, and she also was a part of our team that led to the overall improvement of standardized testing scores, including raising Backus's rating up to nearly an A, just under an A, but a B+. She always, in every decision, advocated to put students and teachers first in her decision-making, and we look forward to continuing to work with you, Dr. McDonald, as a partner in our community, as part of the Granbury Independent School District. Tonight, Board President Barbara Townsend will be presenting you with an award that was put together by our students in the Career and Technology Education Department. We want to thank our Director, Todd Gibson, for helping put that together. And then also, it was short notice with Veterans Day, but Representative Slauson did get a flag flown over the Texas Capitol, and she will be sending that to you as well in appreciation for your service on the Granbury Independent School District Board of Trustees.
I'd like us to go ahead and go down and take a picture, please. I was thinking about some of the things that Paula has done behind the scenes, and one of them I wanted to mention to you all. Our STARS students, she saw that there was a way we could take Forward Training Center and work with Forward Training Center and STARS students together. So we now have our STARS students going over to Forward Training Center. They're learning how to write a resume. They're learning how to do interviews. They're even having a chance to think about where they would want to work, and Forward Training Center is trying to match them up with someone in that field. And that was something that was a brainchild between Margaret Rodriguez and Paula McDonald, and I want to thank you both for that.
All right, thank you, Madam President. Just a couple of other issues. The district continues to put an emphasis on attendance. We have now fully launched the new RAWE software program, which will allow our principals and campus administration to really closely monitor what our attendance is on a daily basis, and also provide better communication to our parents about the importance of attendance. In addition to that, we are able to really identify the savings that we can have as a district when it comes to the M&O funding as it relates to having higher attendance in our district. And so principals in real time are able to go on there and see when attendance drops how much money as a district we're losing. And so we'll be making those reports available to you on a monthly basis. Also want to let you know that the district did receive $400,000 for the federal security grant. That money will be used for school safety and standards upgrades. In addition to that, we will tell you that the special education report, I had Shelley Kurtzinger, our Director of Special Education, come into my office and made me aware that we are now out of required improvement. And so in 2020, the district was a DL3, which meant we needed intervention into our special education program. In 2021, that elevated to needs assistance, and she was notified last week that we now meet all requirements and determination levels by the Texas Education Agency. So well done by our special education staff here in central office and those at the campus level as well. Also, Ms. Townsend, when we had our AMS breakfast with the board, brought it to my attention that there are special education upgrades needed at AMS, and we had been discussing that with teachers, and I know Mr. Whitefield and Mr. Dawson have both been to AMS. As you know, our life skills severe and profound unit is held there, and so there are some upgrades we're going to be bringing to you at the next board meeting that are needed on that campus. And so as we identify those areas of concern, we'll bring it back to you for a vote so that we can secure funding to upgrade those areas at AMS. Finally, just a reminder that we will canvass our election. You already mentioned that on Thursday, but we also have breakfast with the board at STARS on Wednesday, and want to thank all the trustees. Later this week, we will actually be passing out retention stipends to our entire staff. And so Stacy Brown in the back did a great job as she manages our federal ESSER funding. And we wanted to make sure that our staff got as much of that funding as possible. And so at the end of this week, I think all of our staff, with the exception of our custodial staff, which that will take place in about another month because of the way their contract started with SSC that contract breaking, and then we took custodial in-house. But we're going to be able to provide that to our entire staff, and I just wanted to thank you trustees for allowing that to happen. I know that our staff appreciates it. And so with that, that is the November report.
Very good, thank you. Yes, in the past, we've done that at Christmas time, but I was told that some people like spending money on Black Friday, so we kind of moved that up a little bit. So I like that. Okay, next on the agenda is open forum, public comment. We have no public comment that are agenda items. There are two, but they will be put at the end of our meeting today. So we will move on to consider action on items discussed in closed session. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. You have before you the personnel report provided by the HR department. It is our recommendation that you approve it as presented.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the staff recommendations as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Graft. And a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. It was a motion by Mr. Moore and seconded by Ms. Graft.
Thank you, Board. One more item from closed session is we have a third request for catastrophic leave. That has been approved by our district level committee, and we'd recommend approval by you tonight.
Do I have a motion on that?
Madam President, I move that we accept the catastrophic leave request as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. Do we have a second?
And I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. All right, moving on to the consent agenda items. Are there any items that a board member would like to pull out to discuss?
Of course.
Go right ahead.
I want to talk about $9,000 in donations from our community. Tony Cannon donated to the GHS robotics team. Tex made sheet metal, and David Prost donated $1,450 to Avid. Barry and Barry donated $500 to the FCCLA, our group. First National Bank donated $250 to Junior Optimist, and the Optimist Club donated $360. So we had a total of $610 donated to the Junior Optimist. The softball boosters donated $900 for travel to the softball team. Elements Grow ran Richard Guerrero donated $65 to the custodial award. Sorry about that. And our Touchdown Club donated to the high school football team for travel a total of $4,647. Again, that was a total of $9,172. That made the life of our students that much better this year. Make sure you thank those folks and buy something if they're selling it.
Is there anything else that would like to be pulled out and discussed? All right, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
Madam President, I move that we accept the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. And we need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. All those in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, let me turn my page. Okay, next on the agenda, consider approval of the superintendent goals. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. I had the opportunity to visit with y'all last month as we went through our, I guess over the last 2 months, we looked through the campus improvement plans, the district improvement plans, and then we narrowed it down to 4 specific goals that will be an area of emphasis for the district this year. The first goal is academic improvement, and specifically, we're looking at the improvement of scores at GHS and GMS. Obviously, we want to see growth on every campus, but we know that GMS is teetering on that C, B level, and certainly know under Dr. Smith's leadership that we'll be able to raise those scores. And then at GHS, obviously, as our flagship campus, largest campus in the district, looking at academic growth there will be important. But in addition to the academic improvement on all campuses, specifically those two, we'll continue to look at closing the gaps across the district as well as moving to one-to-one on student devices. The second goal we'll look at is improving campus culture, applying not only to the culture of teachers, including teacher retention, parent surveys, relationships with our community, but also student behavioral reports, mental health awareness for our students, student discipline. Those will all be targeted areas for improving campus culture. Goal 3 will be student engagement. We'll look to increase not only attendance coming to school every day, but we want to increase participation in programs. This is extracurricular programs, including athletics, including fine arts, and also including career and technical education. We'll look to increase graduation rates. We'll provide monthly reports to trustees on attendance, and we'll also look at additional funding for fine arts and scholarshiping programs that are expensive for students to join, such as band, so that our low-income students are able to participate at a high level. And then finally, we'll reassess district growth initiatives. Part of that will begin tonight as Templeton Demographics in our report section lays out the new demographic study for our area, but we'll also evaluate and conclude the G2025 plan and begin planning for strategic planning up to 2030. And that'll include not only our teachers and our students, but also our community and our staff as well. And so we look forward to putting together a new long-term strategic plan for Granbury Independent School District.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. Are there any comments or anything that anyone would like to add to that before we vote to accept or deny?
I just would like to say thank you to everyone for all your input. It was a pleasure coming up with these goals and working together to improve Granbury ISD.
One comment, it grieves me that the state asked for our campus improvement plans and our district improvement plan before we set the goals for our superintendent. And that's almost like getting the cart before the horse. I would challenge our campuses to check their plans and see how they can tweak them to maybe help the superintendent meet the goals that this board has set for him. Having said that, that's something over which we have no control. Having said that, I move that we accept the goals as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you, Board. Moving on. Consider approval of renovation of Pirate Stadium and Pavilion. Coach Cheesy, you're up.
I promise it's turf. Good evening, Madam President and board members. I'm here tonight because of Coach Butler, and just want to first start and say thank you for allowing me to present on his behalf, but I would like for everyone to keep him in your thoughts and your prayers as he's recovering from an accident, and we wish him a speedy recovery. And let it be known that that's the only reason I'm here tonight. So I'll gladly do it in his place. Love that man. It's never fun to stand in front of you and ask for something. However, our current turf situation at the stadium is poor. The condition is poor. And our current turf at Pirate Stadium was installed in January of 2014. We have just completed our 9th football season on the turf, and we'll be starting our 9th season in soccer this month. We've hosted numerous high school playoff games for both football and soccer, including the state semifinal 6-man championship games, 2 graduations, numerous pep rallies, the yearly Pirate Band Showcase, district-wide family events, a community-wide church event last spring called Hope Now, multiple Pee Wee football games, and large area-wide soccer tournaments. We are currently turning down the opportunity to host playoff football games due to the condition of the turf and because we're trying to prolong the life of the turf through our soccer season. The current turf in the Pirate Pavilion was installed in 2001 when the pavilion was built. Each year we have the turf in the Pirate Stadium and the pavilion professionally groomed. We have minor repairs completed and have it disinfected, as well as we have a GMAX test ran on the Pirate Stadium turf by a third party. A GMAX test measures the impact, intuition, or the ability of a surface to absorb shock due to impact. This past August, we failed our GMAX test, which was tested by 2 different third parties, and both reports came back with the same information. The failed GMAX test left our turf in dangerous situation under the ASTM, or the American Society for Testing and Materials Standards. We were able to complete a deep clean. They came in and they took out all the pellets and deep cleaned it, and then reinstalled as much as they could, including 8 to 10 more super bags of rubber into the turf, which is a temporary fix. Our turf is currently coming unglued from the surface and unraveling at the original seams. It was almost weekly that I would meet with Daryl and show him spots on the field that were coming unglued. Daryl would then, and I would help him, dig out the turf from underneath the rubber from underneath the turf, use the glue that they recommend, glue it back down, but in essence, weeks later, we'd be at the same spots, gluing the turf back to the surface. Additionally, our turf is laying down on its side instead of standing up due to its age and its usage. This is causing the infill to shift and at times wash out. If you or your students have spent much time on the field, you have likely noticed turf on your shoes, in your socks, or on your clothing. Here's a small example of what I gathered today. So this took me about 15 to 20 seconds, and I simply just ran a cup over the field, and this is turf that is no longer attached to the field, and that's what you're seeing when we try to fluff up the turf with a drag. This comes at its surface, and if you walk across a turf field that's been installed in the last 4 years, you don't see this. So that's why I brought this. The rubber pellets, they're not being allowed to, so when our temporary fix is they came in and they being the company that serviced the field, and they added the rubber pellets to pass the GMAX test so that kids could be safe on the field. And these are designed to be at the base of the turf, but because our turf, because of its age and it laying down, these are not getting to the base, and they're simply sitting on top. And so you see them after a heavy rain like today. I could have grabbed those from the concrete because they're simply washing off the field. They're not down in the base of the turf where they're intended to be. Additionally, because of the failed GMAX test and because of the condition of the turf, we're looking at replacing the turf at both locations to provide a safer playing surface for the students and the athletes of GISD. Within that, you saw in your presentation that what we're recommending, and it's more specific in terms of the turf. One thing that we're recommending is the helix shape. For all you science and biology majors, the helix is a matrix form of turf that is twisted, and it forms a curl. The curled shape secures the infill. This would be considered the infill. This prevents migration and keeps the infill from washing away during heavy rains. The helix technology also has a memory strength to the fibers, allowing the fibers to spring back up. So When this particular turf was installed, there was no such thing as a helix. It was just one strand of turf glued down. This is more or less, I talked to the guy today, I'm certainly no turf guru, but it's a 8-piece tree, to think of it in that terms, 8 pieces of strand come together, and they're all twisted. And so when there's use on the turf, that twisted yarn allows that turf to stand back up versus laying down, which is part of the problem that we're having now. But unfortunately, when this was installed, helix wasn't an option. The second part that we are recommending is the Ecotherm infield, which provides dramatic temperature reduction, but unlike fully organic infill, Ecotherm requires no water. So there are infills that require water, even though it's turf. This uniquely shaped granular is made up of recycled vinyl TPU and ironically enough, a cellulose fiber. The cellulose is a natural fiber that makes up plant cell walls. As such, it naturally absorbs, stores, and slowly releases water. With cellulose, Ecotherm captures ambient moisture from the air or rain, creating an evaporating coolant effect for the turf and temperature reduction of up to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's certainly a cooler, and it's part of the base that the turf requires. You're going to have some type of base. That's just the base that we're bringing to you. And then last is the cush drain underneath the turf. So think of the pad of your carpet. There's all different types of pads you can get for your carpet, and there's different types of drainage systems. The cush drain is an elastic layer that increases the shock absorption, again protecting the student athletes, which in turn keeps our athletes safer. It also is resistant to rot, mildew, water, and compression associated with the normal athletic field use. This product also improves the drainage of the field and holds its form. Here's a key point: it holds its form and position through 3 to 4 life cycles. So essentially you're looking at 25 to 30 years of life cycle of your base by using the cush drain. So when and if turf gets laid down and it has to be replaced, you would simply come in and lay down new turf only, because this base will last for up to 25 to 30 years. There would be no regrading. There would be no more pea gravel. That's done and taken care of for 25 to 30 years or 3 to 4 life cycles of the top surface. And so with that being said, we would appreciate consideration in this. I'll do my best to answer turf questions. I do have a guy that said I could call him on speed dial should we need him. But if you have questions and I'm able to answer, I will certainly do my best.
Yeah, thank you, Coach. We'll have a couple of questions, but real quick, we're talking about turf and lighting. Mr. Whitefield, your office bid the components of this for Coach Butler. Will you talk briefly about that? Because I know we're going with the low bid here.
Yes, sir. The athletics department and the purchasing department did let a bid out. We did have 3 people respond to the bid on the turf. Hellas was the low bid in that. And we did have 5 LED retrofit lighting vendors respond. And we did go with, we are presenting the lowest bid on that as well.
Speak briefly to the lights, because I know Coach Sheezy didn't cover it.
Yes, sir. We went ahead and we had a engineer come out and do the inspection of our poles, because the last time they were inspected were 2009, I believe. And we wanted to be sure there were no fractures in that. They did do x-rays on them, and they did tell us that those poles will be good for 50 years. The retrofit for the lights that are out there now, the lights are becoming obsolete. I'm not saying that we can't find them. They're extremely hard to find, and they're extremely expensive. The retrofit would take us to LED lighting, and they would come on faster and go off faster. Now, having said that, you do have recommendations in your packet. Hellas was the low bid, and then Facility Solutions Group for the lighting were the low bid as well. And you have that breakdown in your packet as well.
So Emmett, to your point, as we get to page 65 of board book, the 3 components at the bottom are add-ons.
Yes, the matrix helix and the cush drain are one part of that, and that's the $242,170. That is one piece of the add-on. The Ecotherm is the $137,255, and then like I said, the two go together. So those three add-ons, the matrix helix and the cush drain go together.
I just have a question in
Yes, ma'am.
reference to the turf. I understand what you're saying as far as the base is 25 to 30 years, and that's the base. How long typically does the turf last, or is that just dependent on, just kids and how hard it's?
That's a great question. So it depends on the turf that you go with. This particular one that we're recommending has an 8-year guarantee, so an 8-year warranty. The guy that I spoke with today said with the base that we're recommending, he's seeing teams get 10 to 12 years out of it. But they don't have as much data because this base hasn't come out long enough to see past 12 years. So in other words, it's relatively new, the turf that we're recommending. But the base, they have the original base, he told me today at one of the fields in the Metroplex, it's outlived the guy that put it down. So the athletic director that put it down 20-something years ago is no longer around. That's the base. Now, again, your question was the turf. Well, think of the turf as the carpet, and it just depends on which carpet you put on top. But the particular one that we're recommending has an 8-year guarantee, and he's seeing upwards of 10 to 12 years. Good question.
I have another question off of that. So, say we have to replace the turf, of course, down the road, prices change. What, on average, would you be looking at if we have to replace 8 to 9 years from now, have to replace just that turf? Is there a rough estimate?
No, but I don't have the rough estimate for that. Again, it would depend on the turf, but what I can tell you is you would save the cost that you're going to put in now for the cush drain and the Ecotherm, because that would not have to be replaced. It would simply just be the turf.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think by today's standards, that's probably going to be that's that $519,000 number, so $500,000.
I have a question. As far as the turf goes, covering the field, does that apply to turf fields? Do we cover our field? And if we did, would that help prolong the life of the turf?
Another great question, which is the only reason that the turf in the pavilion is still around, is because it never gets any UV rays. Although it feels like AstroTurf and matted down, it's still there and capable. So no, teams, I don't know of any schools that cover the turf. But what I can tell you is the heat in Texas eats up that turf, which is the reason why all the current schools that I've reached out to are going with the Ecotherm. Because that Ecotherm, again, with that cell, it absorbs moisture and then releases that moisture, in turn cooling down the turf by up to 30 degrees. So this summer, part of the reason our turf is where it's at is because back in the day, the only choice of infill is black rubber. Well, if you've ever been on turf in the summertime, it's substantially hotter than the actual temperature. And so this Ecotherm this will probably be obsolete in the next 3 to 4 years. Nobody's going to use it because of exactly what you're talking about. So there are no tarps that I'm aware of, but their remedy is using the Ecotherm, which absorbs the moisture and then releases it, in turn cooling the turf down. Great question.
Mr. Whipple, on the lights, moving from the lights we currently use to the LED, what is the expected electrical savings on our bills?
That would be determined after a study on that. I know that everybody's moving to the LED lights because it is substantial. There are 4 light poles out there, and they generate a lot of electricity. I do not have the exact number on that of what it would save us.
And Coach Cheesy, you and I have talked already. What happens if we don't do this?
So again, Hellas told us that the GMAX failed in their solution to it, dumping the rubber on top, which if you've been to the stadium this year, you notice that our turf looks darker or dirty. It's not dirty, it's just, this is what's laying on top. So they said they couldn't and wouldn't do that again. So if our field was to fail a GMAX test next year, then my first thought is you have two options. You play home games at one of your middle school stadiums, or even worse, you play all 10, or in soccer's case, all 20 away games, home games away. Yes, ma'am. And we're trying to prevent that from happening, which is why we're coming to you now. It was a little troubling this year when I got the news that the GMAX had failed this summer, right before, kids are about to get on it.
Well, I noticed during the games that we had this year that if one of the guys hit that ground, it was almost like a spray of these black pellets. So, they were on top. They were not underneath at all.
It's slightly slipperier if you dare, and I just want what's best for the kids. I have personal kids that, they play a different sport, but they'll be on that field, and I don't want any kid going out there, and that's one reason, we turned down a college friend of mine, a personal friend from college up in Frisco last week, called and said, "Coach, if we win and this team wins, man, we'd love to be at y'all stadium." And I ran it by, and we just don't feel right putting them on, because they see the best of the best week in and week out. And I fielded multiple questions from coaches this year prior to games about, "Coach, what's going on with your turf?" And I just reassure them that it's safe, but we had to come in and put extra pellets down, and it's laying down, it's not standing up. So how do you get this turf to stand up? Well, you drag it. You drag it with like a brush. Well, when we're dragging it with a brush to try to get it to stand up, what's coming up from the surface, and we're having to glue it back down. So we're kind of in a catch-22 on how do we prolong it for as long as we can. And that's where we're at.
I've played on turf. I've played co-ed soccer on turf, and I know how slippery it can get. And especially with soccer, you're cutting and turning, and you fall quite a bit when it gets that slippery. And I know it becomes unsafe. Are the soccer teams able to play on it as is now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
this is something that would happen this summer.
So if it was approved, then we would be able to start it as soon as soccer season was over, and then it would be finished before graduation. So we'll be able to be back on it for graduation. Emmett has gave us peace of mind that will happen.
Oh, so you would do it before graduation? Okay, I figured you would do it this summer. Okay.
Yeah.
Coach, as we're looking at the turf and evaluating that, and spending what's a pretty significant amount to create that base that will allow turf to last longer in the future, the Ecotherm is pretty expensive, part of the recommendation. And I know Coach Butler and Mr. Whitefield and I had a lot of conversations specifically about the Ecotherm as opposed to the current black rubber pellets, which is, for the last couple of decades, just been what districts have used. The investment in the Ecotherm being such a new technology, what are you hearing from other schools? Because it's not cheap to go from the black pellets to the Ecotherm, and with such a new technology, we're wondering about the holdup and the value really seen in that.
So my first response always goes back to the students and the athletes, and the coaches that I talk to that are on their turf that actually have this in the summertime. It's almost as if you're walking from wherever you are onto a coolant surface. Like you can actually feel the difference in the temperature. Whereas now when we walk on the turf, we feel it being hotter. And I've actually seen shoes not disintegrate, but they've actually melted. You're shaking your head because you've seen it too, yeah. Versus these coaches are telling me, and I haven't experienced, so I can't speak from experience, but when they walk on their turf with the Ecotherm, you can feel it being cooler which in turn is safer for the kids, no matter how you want to cut it. And if it prolongs the longevity because it's cooler for the turf, then again, we came to the recommendation that spend the money up front and try to keep the safety of our kids and the life of the turf in mind.
So this is why I like grass.
Yes.
I was on this board 9 years ago. I guess it would have been sometime in 2013 when we had this initial discussion to go from grass to artificial turf. And if you were here, you probably wouldn't like me today. I was the only trustee that voted against it at that time. I wanted to stay with grass. But having said that, I know there's no going back. We're essentially stuck with AstroTurf, I would assume. Given that, I want to make sure I understand, Emmett, the total project cost you have listed board book at just over $1.3 million. Is that both the turf and the light project bundled together, or is that just the turf?
Yes, sir, that is a complete package. That is the pavilion, that's the Pirate Stadium, that's the Cush Drain and the Matrix. It's also the Ecotherm, and then we have the $17,000 included that we've already spent with the engineer to check out the light poles to be for sure that we could do it. And then it also includes a $10,000 engineer that we will hire as a third-party independent from Hellas that will oversee that whole project to make sure it's done on time and done right.
Okay, and I'm not sure I caught in there, does it include actually switching out to the LED lights?
Yes, sir, it is turnkey for everything.
Mr. Jackson, that's turnkey with all the add-ons, and so anything the board backs out as far as the options on page 65 would reduce those costs.
Okay. So we're talking about a $1.3 million project basically for our infrastructure. And I'm coming off this board tonight for sure this time. I'm a little concerned because this is probably the first of many infrastructure projects we're going to be faced with as we have aging buildings, other aging assets. We have a bus fleet that's going to have to be continually replaced and replenished. And unless you have a bond on the horizon, you've got to do these things out of either your operating account or fund balance. And I noticed you proposing we take this $1.3 million out of fund balance. Where are we sitting in that fund right now?
At the end of the year, last year, we were at $29.3 million in our fund balance. We expect this year we're going to be adding close to $1 million, and then that will come out of that fund balance.
Okay, and if I remember right, the TEA recommends a floor of about 3 months of operating. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if you assume a 3% increase in our budget for the 22-23 school year, you're looking at about $21.6 million to meet the 3-month threshold next year.
Okay. So we have it in the bank. We have it in our savings account. We can tap that to do this. But for me, as I sit here tonight and just having got this a couple of days ago, I know in fairness to Dr. Glenn, he tipped us off months ago, if not over a year ago, that this was going to become an issue. But I'm just concerned because I would almost rather see the 2 new trustees be seated so they can all discuss as a team moving forward. What's the outlook? What are some of the capital improvement projects we're going to have on our plate in the next year? So I don't know, is the barn on fire here? Do we have to make this decision tonight, or can it be pushed to the December 12th meeting?
So that really comes down to, and I don't know if you visited with Hellas, but it comes down to a timing standpoint to see if we really want to do graduation on the football field or not, because all this would take place after soccer.
And there is some issues with purchasing the stuff because the Hellas product is made in Italy.
And then they stage us, so when you send that PO in, that's when they book your time slot for the installation. So short answer is, yes, it could absolutely wait. Long answer is,
It could kill graduation on the field.
Or we could try and it could possibly be pushed to the summer, which would just limit our ability to use the field over the summer. So,
Is there any reason why we could not use the field beforehand for graduation?
No, like it is now?
Right.
No, ma'am. You can use it. Yeah, we wouldn't be putting the soccer kids on it if it wasn't. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
That's all we're going to do is stand on it.
Right, and sit. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to echo, I have a lot of the same concerns that Mr. Jackson does as well. I understand this is something that we have to do something about this. This is a situation that can't go overlooked. I just have concerns as well with all the other, like the aging fleet and other projects that we're going to have to fund as well. So I would appreciate a little more time to kind of go over this and look at everything and just make sure we're doing our due diligence as board members and being fiscally responsible and making sure that we're going to be able to take care of everything we have to be able to take care of.
Other comments? Do I have some sort of a motion then?
Madam President, I would like to propose a motion that we table this for next meeting. Would it be a table or?
It's not a motion to table.
So no action?
So just no action at this time.
At this time.
But you can ask if there is a motion.
Okay. Is there any motion? If not, we can do a no action. But I just want to make sure I've given everybody a chance to comment. All right, I think we will just do a no action then for today. And Coach Cheese,
Madam
thank
President,
you. Yes, sir.
Point of order, you have to ask if there is a motion.
I did ask if there was a motion.
Okay.
Is there a motion? There is no motion.
I just want to say, I agree. I think, and I had stated this earlier to one of my colleagues, I feel much more comfortable with the new board members having a say because they're the ones that will have to help us this next year in juggling budget, looking at where we're going and what we need to do. And I am much more comfortable with them having a say in an expenditure of this amount. And so that's where I stand on it. I will say this, I ask for data with regard to what we've saved with this or what it's cost us. When they came in, Coach, they told us it would probably have a life of 10 years. That obviously didn't happen, but I'm not ready to go send our school kids back to teaching in unair-conditioned buildings like I taught, in which I taught. I also am not talking about sending kids back on grass fields where they may or may not be successful. But I really think it's important as a board that we honor the election and let our new trustees be a part of the decision.
Thank you, Board. We'll bring this back on December 12th, and we'll also bring in, and during that time, Coach, if y'all get specific timelines about installation, obviously graduation is key for us, and I know for athletics, the end of the soccer season is key, and then as far as summer programs or summer use, we'll see if there's a sweet spot in there where we could minimize disruption.
Right.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we move on to reports. Mr. Hudson Huff, District Demographic Studies. It doesn't say Templeton.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Board President Townsend and board members, Dr. Glenn, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and to represent our team from Zonda and Mr. Templeton sends his greetings to you. And so I'll get into it with you to share what we have to present tonight, I think. Thank you. So first, we've had an extremely strong housing market. Our economy has been extremely strong over the last 12 to 18 months. We've had a very low unemployment rate. So in the DFW area, we've actually been at about 3.7%, and we know in Hood County we're about 3.9%. So that's been very, very strong and has been impactful for our housing growth and what that market looked like. That has challenged us now with what has happened with the commodities, logistics, and wage rates with what that employment picture looked like has really complicated things related to inflation. So with inflation, if you'll go to the next slide, we've dealt with some, it's not, is it? Yeah, sorry. Okay. Always better if it's powered on. There we go. With that said, we've seen that we've had significant inflation over the last probably 12 to 18 months now. And so we've also seen, starting in March, that the Federal Reserve came and started increasing the federal funds rate. So there was an increase in March, a very slight increase, that actually moved to 50 basis points in May. And then we've had a series of 75 basis points in June, July, September, and just even as late as this past week, they increased that rate again. And so what that looks like is for a mortgage loan that was going to be in the ballpark of about $340,000 in March of earlier this spring, it would be about that $340,000 mortgage would relate to about a $1,950 house payment a month. And so what we saw was an escalation of about 8% over the months of March to September, where those price increases have gone up, still continued to go up based off of demand. And so when you take that in concert with what happened with the percentage increases of about 3.5% to 7%, that new home is now, that monthly payment is about a little over $2,700. So it was an impact of about $800 to $900 a month, and we know that that's going to be significant for those homeowners that are looking at what their purchasing options are going to be. So we are anticipating that that's going to challenge us moving forward, and we'll go through that a little bit more as we kind of go through this. Just related to the overall, yes? Pull that mic up here. Oh, I apologize. I'll try to do a little better with that. All right, is that better? All right, I'll do. With that said, we know that we've had significant population increases in our area, and so this has gone up in both the overall population. We've also had significant increases in the student-populated area and in our student populations, as well as household growth has gone up as well. So this graph will kind of depict kind of the world we're living in, as opposed to the 2021, which was our most significant in relation to sales in the region. And then you can see what has happened. We had I think a great spring, but with the rate increases, we've seen that slow down significantly. We don't have, I can get that to you, but we know that our projections show that we're going to be close to about a 2,500 sales range by the time we get to December is what we're projecting right now. This highlights what I referenced earlier related to the escalation in costs. As you see what the 2021 year was for both the average new home as well as the existing home. So you can see significant increases over the last 10 years. So for the new home sales, that over that 10-year time frame, it's gone up over $153,000. And for the existing home, it's actually gone up $213,000 higher than it was in 2012. So significant increases. So it's been great for sellers and challenging for buyers related to demand. So you can see the district has 23 active building subdivisions, and within Granbury ISD, we also see that there are 13 future subdivisions, and of that, we have about 390 lots that are currently have some type of groundwork happening, utilities going in, those kind of things happening. We also have multifamily units, so we have about 193 multifamily units that are currently being built right now. 145 of those are senior living units. And we do anticipate about 430 future multifamily units that will be coming online in the next few years. We have in the Membrino attendance zone area, we have Orchard at Pecan Plantation. So that has a total of about 611 total lots, 11 vacant developed, and then 128 future lots that are in that development. And currently right now have 10 homes that are under construction. A fairly low yield, about 0.107 coming out of that development at this current time. We also have the Landings Air Park at Pecan Plantation, and that's got 139 total lots and has 66 future lots in that phase. There is groundwork underway on a future section in phase 3. We also have Modern Oaks that you can see here. It's got 21 total future lots, and groundwork is underway in that area. We do anticipate, let's see, they have, I believe this one was the one that they did have a slowdown based off of working with the city. So this one has been delayed. Vista Oaks has a total of 50 total lots, 37 vacant developed lots, and 8 homes that are currently under construction. No current students are coming out of that development at this time. Tree Oaks is also in the Membrino area. It's 203 total lots, 126 future lots, and 7 vacant developed lots currently right now, 9 homes that are under construction. And we actually have a fairly significant yield of 0.393 that are in that development right now.
Hudson, for people who don't know, discuss what that student yield means.
So student yield ties to the number of students that come out of each individual home. So you won't necessarily have a student coming out of each individual home, but you will over a series of homes. Out of 10 homes, you may have about 4 students that would come out of that.
So if 100 homes are built, we'll get 39 kids.
Correct. Saratoga is a large development that continues to be developed, 520 total platted lots right now, 309 futures, and 18 homes currently under construction. Drove by there today, and actually they actually have, even through the weather and things that are happening today, they actually had tractors and things going on, so they're moving dirt, so there were activity out there. Abe's Landing is 338 total lots, approximately 60 vacant developed lots, and we have approximately 278 homes that are already currently occupied there. We have a current yield of 0.215 of students that are coming out of Abe's Landing currently right now. Back down towards the Membrino area, we have Luca Ranch and have 94 total lots there. Approximately 90 of those are vacant developed lots currently right now. And we anticipate the first residents that would be moving into that area would be in the spring of 2023. Cardinal Woods has 40 total future lots. The development is on hold. with the city currently right now in the moratorium. So, but we do anticipate that that would come online in the future. As well as Pirate Village has the 76 future lots, and that was preliminary platted this past July. Groundwork has not started yet on that one yet. We also have, when you think about the future developments in the Acton area, we have the Crescent Mud development, and that one's about 500 future total lots, as well as a portion of Mittmart land tract that is 1,100 total homes. So that's was approved, I believe, in April of 2022, and long term, they anticipate that development's going to be about a 7 to 10 year development. Within Granbury ISD, there is 261 students residing in over 1,800 multifamily units. That is a yield, when you go back to the yield reference, per unit of that multifamily of 0.142. And we have 100 students residing outside of the district. Many times this is related to staffing and students that are coming with their parents into the district. And 664 students and roughly about 8.5 that reside within the Granbury city limits, and 72 of those are within the Crescent city limits. This is just a brief reference and table related to your kindergarten students in birth rates. So we did have a significant number of kindergarten students and a high birth rate out of last year's number. We did drop down this current year, and we do hear from the state that the overall birth rate has come down a little bit in the last several years. So we're continuing to track that and evaluate how significant those trends are going to be moving forward. You'll also see here that this is just a reference to the number of students that we have in each grade cohort. And so you'll see that we have our highest number of students were in 9th grade, and the second highest grade was actually in first grade. I apologize. We also had a significant grade change in year over year. When you look at your 4th grade, was about 517, and this current year we have about 642 students in that 4th grade level.
Could you explain what the yellow and green and the different highlighted numbers mean?
Yes, so yellow is just the largest grade cohort, is the largest, yellow being the largest and second being the second largest. And we track that to identify where those large grade classes are, so that on many times as a community starts to mature, and we have a long way to go before we're at that stage of things here in Granbury, but you'll have a larger grade cohort in those high school ages. And so knowing that you're in that first or second grade level still, you still have a lot of growth and a lot of higher count classes still to come.
I'm sorry, would you go back to that again?
Yes.
So I can assume your 8th grade 627 and 637 means that is a large group that both are coming through the high school at the same time.
Yes.
For clarification.
And just to reference, your 9th grade class, for many of the districts that we report on, there is a significant 9th grade class, and that's partly due to the fact that there may be a credit or two in the fall that they haven't finished out. So classification-wise, they may still be referenced as, we may have some sophomores that are still actually referenced as a freshman. So they're in those numbers in the 9th grade class. So we try not to emphasize or overemphasize that number at 9th, because typically it's a balance between the 9th and 10th grade class.
Thank you.
So what you can see with this is, it highlights those grade levels and where those students are located. But if you look at the right side, you'll actually see the growth percentages that we have on that far right side. And so what we would highlight there is you see that we did have 242 students in the 3.1% growth this current year. But we are trying to be a little bit more conservative as we evaluate what we anticipate is going to happen in the market for this next year. And so we are showing a little bit of a drop down in growth, knowing that we have significant growth still to come, but we know that there's a lot to digest with where the interest rates are currently right now and what kind of an impact that's going to have on the mortgage market. So we're referencing that in our numbers currently right now. With that said, you can see where you're at right now with each of the individual campuses specific to your capacities at each of the individual campuses. So you can see that both at Acton, we know we have significant numbers down the road coming in the future. And we know we have some challenges in Mambrino and Bronner, where you also have, you've got stability at Nettie Bacchus and Oakwoods currently right now. When you look at your middle school numbers, you're going to be fine, I think, for the next several years. But you will have some challenges in the 2020, starting in that 26-27 school year, with Acton having some enrollment challenges related to capacity. And then at the high school, we anticipate that would start to be challenging as we get into the 27-28 school year.
Could you go back real quick?
Oh, certainly, yes.
So according to this graph, I'm reading it correctly, in 4 years, half of our campuses will be over capacity, and in 5 years, over half will be over capacity.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the way this is set up, are these the numbers of how many students would be in those schools if they only went to the school for their area, or is this? Okay.
Yes, this is based off of our current attendance zones as they stand today.
The zones, not exactly what some of our students are doing, where they go to a school other than the one that's in their zone.
Yeah, the numbers reflected here are all based on attendance zone.
Okay, thank you.
So if we were to shift anyone out of, let's say we were to cut the Mambrino zone down and shift students over to Bronner, then Bronner's number would go up. Does that make sense? Or probably would make more sense if we were to cut Bronner's number down and shift students to Bacchus, or move some students out of Oakwood or AES to Bacchus, their number would go up to fill capacity.
But Bronner is going to be at capacity anyway, and so the shift would have to come someplace else, would it not? I mean, we'd have to shift to Bronner and then have to shift to Bacchus?
Bacchus is where we would have to shift.
Yeah. So that means massive rezoning.
So when we start talking about rezoning and moving families, you really want to look at how it's the output over like a 5-year period.
Yeah.
If you're gonna rezone and within 2 years that rezoning is not going to meet the needs for growth in the area, that becomes really hard on families. So for example, if we decide that we want to shift families, and you don't really just affect one zone. A lot of times you're affecting all the zones. So you're moving, as you move kids out of Mambrino, you're shifting them down to Bronner. As you shift kids out of Bronner, maybe you're shifting them up to Oakwoods or to Bacchus, or you're shifting kids out of Oakwoods into Bacchus to create room at AES. And so it's kind of a moving chart, but something certainly that is in the wheelhouse of Templeton, and that Templeton has done for us before.
In looking at these numbers, it doesn't look like there's a lot of shifting. I mean, we're talking maybe 20, 30 students maybe in these numbers. Like if you look at Oakwoods, they're over capacity at 660, so you're talking about maybe being able to push 20 kids over there.
Capacity levels are hard on campuses. I mean, if you were to push 880 kids into AES, they could certainly hold it, but I'm sure Ms. Walton would appreciate it if she didn't have nearly 900 kids on our campus. Is you look at the elementary totals, something I like to point out is, you know, if we were going to max out, that bottom level shows you that our total capacity at the elementary level is about 4,450 kids. So that means we're filling up every seat in the entire district. And so you're going to hit that number probably around the 28 school year. And so as you start thinking about, you know, possible construction projects, and the reason that we called a bond last year is knowing that it takes probably 3, but most likely 4 years in this market to get a facility on the ground. So if you're going to build an elementary school and you're going to start next year, you know, 24, 25, 26, and possibly 27 are going to be build years, meaning that elementary is going to open in 28. Does that make sense? And they could probably get an elementary knocked out in 3 years, but I know when we were having conversations about a high school last year, it was 4 years.
All right. So to summarize, we grew 242 students this year, and so we do see that there will continue to be growth in the district. We do anticipate that there will be impacts because of what the interest rate is doing right now, and evaluating what that'll look like for this next year. And we will continue to evaluate that and update the district as we get more information. We do anticipate the overall home sales, as referenced earlier, that would be in that range of about 2,400 to 2,500 total home sales. And then we have 13 future subdivisions in various planning stages, with an anticipation of a little over 1,100 students of growth in the district over the next 5 years, and then anticipating that the enrollment by the year 2032 would reach approximately about 10,000, a little over 10,800 students. With that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Hudson, you mentioned that birth rates were down across Texas. What are y'all seeing as far as intrastate move-ins?
Well, the overall, and I don't have that exact number, but I can tell you that does help offset what we're dealing with related to that number right now. So that continues to see the growth. It creates that growth that we have in general related to the elementary numbers that we're seeing. But as far as the actual percentages and what that offset is, I don't know I don't know that I'd have that number right now, but I can definitely look at that and get that information back to you.
Any other questions from anyone? Thank you so much, Hudson. That was wonderful. We really appreciate the information. Definitely give us a lot to chew on right there. Okay, moving on, Mr. Carruthers with the annual transportation report.
Board, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about transportation. Those of you that know me know that my blood runs school bus yellow, and I like to talk about transportation, so I've set my timer to make sure I don't talk too long on here. One thing I did want to talk to you today about was bus routes. Currently, we have 55 bus routes. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot right there, but let's dig into it just a little bit. Each route consists of 4 pieces. You have your morning AM, where the bus drivers get up before it gets daylight and they're out there driving the elementary kids to school. Then we go back out again and get the middle school, high school kids, take those to school. And in the afternoon, we do the same thing. We take the elementary school kids home and the middle school, high school kids home. But in addition, to add to that, we have pre-K shuttles, bilingual shuttles, STEAM shuttles. We have take CTE kids to their campuses, take SPED midday trips out, and in the afternoon we have tutorials and activity shuttles. So chances are, if you are out during the day, you are going to see yellow buses running around. and that's including Saturday because they're out literally all the time. So we did a little bit of number crunching to find out that we did a total of 999,000 miles of routes. In addition to that, just route mileage, we did an additional 170,000 miles of field trips. That's extracurricular with football going, band going, debate team, robotics team, all those guys going out to different deals. But that 1 million was just so incredible, I had to drill down and look at it visually for myself. So what I did is I drilled down to one day. In one day, we go 5,663 miles. Now again, being the visual fellow that I am, I got on the map and I started at San Francisco, California, and I went to Charleston, South Carolina. We do that there and back every day. That's a lot of miles. That's a lot of miles. That brings me to the brag part of my my speech where I'm talking to you guys now. We're doing that safely. Our drivers are taking these kiddos in an area between Fall Creek Highway and the hospital. There are 2.5 accidents a week. Hopefully none of those are going to be school buses. They haven't been so far, and our guys are super careful, and safety is the prime deal that they're looking at that. So I've got to brag on my people that they're taking care of business and they're keeping those kiddos safe. But on the other side offers our challenge. And our challenge is our fleet, as we have talked about earlier, is getting older and older. This year we have 15, and it's not really age as much as it is mileage. Remember, we go from coast to coast twice a day. It's not so much age as it is mileage. We have 15 route buses that have less than 100,000 miles on there. We have 22 route buses that have between 100 and 200,000 miles on there, and 33 buses, I know that number's a little bit different, but that involves our sub buses, that kind of stuff, that have over 200,000 miles on there. Now, you and I both drive cars, and you can't drive a vehicle in Texas. You have to drive a vehicle. Public transit is probably not much out there. So we know that our cars, the more we use them, the more we have to depend on them. And as the car gets old, as we get more mileage, we start worrying about it, and that same thing goes with me. I worry about our kids when we go out there, and we've got those vehicles that are the higher mileages that we're taking our kids out to Killeen, to Lake Belton, to some areas like that where we're taking some kids out. That brings me to my wish, which you guys have gotten pretty close to my wish already. My wish is that we add 5 buses per year. This year, we've bought 2 special needs buses. We just bought, in this meeting, 2 big buses, so we're at 4 already. My wish is, as our goes along, that we move forward and we're able to put 5 per year. I believe at 5 per year, we can keep that services up, keep the field trips up, that 170,000 miles worth of field trips, the coast-to-coast daily route trips, and still serve the students of Granbury ISD. At that point, I want to leave it up to you guys. What kind of questions do you have about the transportation department for Granbury ISD?
When you get these new buses, what are you going to do with the old ones? Where do they go?
Most of the time, the old buses go into the sub-fleet, if you will. If you remember, I said we've got 33 that are over 200,000. Some of those go into sub-fleet. Some of those, if you will see in the boneyard in the sublot that we call over here, we use those and we take some of the parts off of those buses and then use them, if you will, as a salvage yard. Because we've saved the district a lot of money by taking some of those used pieces, and putting them on the older buses. So after we've pretty much used them up, at that point, then we will surplus them and sell them. Anybody else, any questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Brian, and we're grateful to you and your drivers. Y'all do a tremendous job.
We do, thank
appreciate
you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, Mrs. Brown to talk about Narcan protocol.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's really hard to follow Brian Carruthers because he's so passionate about buses and transportation. Thank goodness our kids are taken care of. So before you guys, you have a copy of the new Narcan protocol that has been put into place for all of our campuses. This is connected to the standing orders by Dr. Watts, and all GISD nurses were trained on how to administer Narcan in August of 2022, and all secondary staff was trained in September. The Narcan protocol was presented to SHAC in the October meeting, and all of the training was done by the Hood County Substance Abuse Council. This is just an informational update for you specifically so that you can see how we have enhanced our safety procedures based upon the increase of opioid addiction and overdose within the state. Rob Holliday presented on the dangers of vaping and reviewed the effectiveness of Narcan on opioid overdose, and that was through a parents-only presentation. And so this information was also shared with our parents. Any questions?
So this was opened up to the parents in the high school or all parents?
It was specifically an informational session by Rob Holliday, who came in to talk about the dangers of vaping, and he reinforced the opioid addiction and the success that they've had with Narcan in the schools to conquer those overdoses.
Would you clarify just a minute for those of us that might not be as informed, when would Narcan be called upon to be used, and what would drive that, and what would be the parent's role?
Sure. So naloxone is the medication, and it's a synthetic narcotic that blocks opioid receptors in an emergency situation. And it's basically a mist that is done through the nose, and so our staff was trained specifically on the signs and symptoms of opioid overdose, as well as our nurses, and they went through specifically the guidelines. And so in an emergency situation, this is, I believe at the secondary level, it's in the AED machines, the little kit that's on the wall there, and then at the elementary level, it's in the nurses' stations. I can tell by the way that you're shaking your head,
we should never have to have something like that in the elementary school. I'm glad we do, but we should never have to have that.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
All righty. So I think I'm next again.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to introduce you guys to Christina Sosby. She is our K-12 EB, ESL, dual language coordinator, as well as she does some of our private nonprofit connections and our Title III, which has to do with our emergent bilingual program. And she prepared the detailed bilingual presentation for you guys that was 10 pages long. After this meeting, we will post that 10-page report to the website, as well as our current PowerPoint for any information that's necessary. So I am actually going to turn it over to her. She talks really fast, so y'all hang on. Okay.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Havana, and school board members. As she said, I do speak fast, and that's part of being an emergent bilingual student way back when, and I spoke Spanish the first 5 years of my life. So my brain is trying to transition between the two languages, but here we go. As Ms. Brown stated, the 10-page detailed report y'all have, this is just a brief overview of that report. Okay, for Granbury ISD, our bilingual programs, our first program is the dual language immersion one-way program, which is currently offered at Emma Robertson and Bronner. And then, again, as a reminder, this is the end of last year. The dual language one-way was pre-K through third grade. Our second program is a transitional bilingual early exit, which is fourth and fifth grade, which is only offered at Bronner. Both programs transfer a student to English-only instruction in middle school. Instruction for both programs is provided to English learners in an instructional setting where language learning is integrated with content instruction. The next program we have is English as a Second Language, otherwise known as ESL. This is offered at all campuses, all 10 campuses, from pre-K through 12. And there's just a basic overview of ESL through content-based or pull-out instruction. Content-based is at our elementary campuses, and pull-out is at our secondary campuses. We integrate second language acquisition, instructional practices, and implementation of the ELPS, which are your English Language Proficiency Standards. The emphasis is on the mastery of English language skills in all core contents, and is an integral part of the academic goals. Bilingual paraprofessionals are available at several GISD campuses with higher EB numbers to assist and support student learning.
EB meaning?
EB meaning emergent bilinguals.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's the term they switched to last year. And prior to that, but the state of Texas and in Tech and Tech, you'll still see English learner, and they're still going to use that. So they go between the two. The primary goal of ESL is to achieve progress towards mastery of comprehensive in the 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and for academic and social environments to prepare them. Our numbers at the end of the 21-22 school year, there were 753 emergent bilingual students. As of October 28th, there are currently 837 EB students, and this is an increase of 84 students, with an estimation of this number increasing over the remainder of the school year. And just to update you, as of 5 o'clock this evening, in the last 2 weeks, we've increased by another 10 students. There are currently 14 monitored students in their first or second year of monitoring after they have successfully reclassified and exited the emergent bilingual status. Current languages, there are currently 16 languages spoken for our students that are classified as emergent bilingual, and there's a brief overview, and I apologize, the PowerPoint.
I'm sorry, just go back. Why would we have English on here?
Very good. Okay, so many of our students on their home language survey have to answer one of 2 questions when the student first enrolls in a Texas public school for the first time. The parents have to fill out the home language survey, and there's 2 questions. What language is spoken by the child most of the time, and what language is spoken at home? So they can put English, 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 Spanish, 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 or any other language. If they put anything besides English, English on those 2 questions, then that kicks off us testing for language proficiency. So some of the kids have English on there because they speak English, but Spanish is spoken at home.
Understand. Thank you.
And then many of our dual language are in there for English and Spanish. Okay, emerging bilingual student progress. Our students every spring take the Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System exam known as TELPAS. Out of the 753 EB students, only 702 took the test last year. 34% showed language proficiency growth from the previous school year. And the second number is just those that are dual coded, which are EB and special education students, and 23% showed growth. And again, this test tests them on 4 domains. They're speaking, listening, reading, and writing.
What kind of percentage would you like to see? I mean, I don't know, it's 34% good, bad, indifferent?
So the number has gone down, and that's across the state of Texas, and a big proponent to that, which is in the detailed report, is the fact that they have moved the listening and speaking. It used to be holistically rated. That means the teachers would go in and rate the kids. Has been moved now to online, and a computer rates the kids. So as we all know, even with myself, when I speak to Siri, half the time she misses what I say, whether it's an accent or I speak too fast. And that's the problem with many of us have complained to TA and just said, propose, is there something else we can do? We've gotten more specifics on what the speaking domain is requiring of our kids. Because you've seen some of the reports, these kids are getting masters on star reading, but getting beginning or intermediate on speaking, which, as we all know in history, when you're learning a second language, the first two things you learn are speaking and listening before you learn the academic content. So there's something going on there that we need to look at. So there's a discrepancy, and again, that's across the state of Texas. It's not just Granbury. It's all schools in Texas that have seen that shift by being rated by a computer.
Thank you.
The next slides are our star reading for our EB students. One of the areas that they need to pass in order to qualify for exiting the program is their star reading. We do not look at the other subjects for reclassification. We do look at them just to track how they're doing, but the main proponent is our star reading. So in 3rd through 8th grade, 350 of the EB students took star in 2022. 51.4%, that's 162. And again, that's remembering that number, the 162, is only 4th through 8th grade because the 3rd grade didn't take a test in 2nd grade, so there was not a progress measure for them. But 51% showed progress measure 1, which is expected growth, and 44.76% showed accelerated growth, which is the progress measure 2. And Ms. Brown said this is not our passing rate either. Our passing rate was much higher overall. This only takes into account those that have shown expected or accelerated growth, not those that got approached. And that number is much higher, which we're very proud of. And then at the high school level, this is taking English 1 or 2. For those that are still qualified as EB, we had 114 9th through 12th graders who took the test, and 39 or 34.2% showed expected growth for progress measure 1. And again, this is just showing the growth, not those that passed the test. The summer of 2022 at STARS Academy, there was our EB summer enrichment, which is required by law to be offered to our EB students that are going into kinder or going into 1st grade. So we had 22 of our students that participated this summer, and again, this is an optional program. We do promote it and we do advocate, but we all know many of our students do go back to Mexico for the summer, or they've already planned trips, or they're working as well. But we did have 22 incoming 1st graders and 12 incoming kinder students that attended this summer, and the purpose of this program is to focus on language development, effective linguistic, and cognitive needs. This is just a non-exhaustive list of many of the resources that we offer through the curriculum department for our EB students. And then on the right side is your assessment materials, how we assess our students. The 21-22 bilingual exemption and ESL waiver. By law, we have to apply for this if we have a teacher in the bilingual program that is not bilingual certified. So we applied for 1 bilingual exemption for Emma Robertson last year, and we applied for 2 ESL waivers for Acton Elementary and Membrano STEAM Academy, and these are for teachers that were teaching EB students in their classroom that were not yet ESL certified. And then a summary of the findings that I tracked with these teachers. 1 teacher successfully obtained her ESL certification by March 1st of 2022. An extension and contract addendum for the 22-23 school year were given to the other 2 teachers that did not obtain their ESL or bilingual certifications. All 3 teachers did complete all the training and coaching requirements proposed in Part 2 of the 21-22 bilingual exemption and ESL waiver application. That's todo. That's all. Thank y'all. Any questions?
Thank you, that was very thorough. Any questions?
No. We do want to thank you, Ms. Sosby. She does a great job. We're fortunate to have her here. She came to us from a campus principal position, and she has been nothing short of a rock star since she came to GISD. So we are fortunate to have her, and well done.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, moving on. We get into financials. Mr. Whitefield, take us home.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you do have the financial statements for month ending October 31st, 2022. These do include the transactions that occurred between September 1st and October 31st, 2022. You can see that the revenue collected to date equals 2.74% of the budgeted amount compared to 3.41% in 21-22. Notable on there, you can see that the annual budget for our investment revenue is $100,000, and earlier this evening you did approve a budget amendment to increase that by $400,000, which is a little bit conservative, but we want to keep an eye on it to see what interest rates do at this point. You can see that the expenditures represent 26.33% of the budget compared to 19.09% in 21-22, and you can see on your report there that the issue between that is going to be your function 81 in facilities construction and acquisition, and that was a budget amendment earlier this evening as well. And that will take care of that. Moving on to your investment and cash flow report. We do leave that on this is for October 31st, 2022, and I do leave that statement on there where we're moving away from our long-term investments, moving more into short-term investments. You can see that this month we did make $67,432.54 in interest revenue. You can see that in our pool investments, you can see that our money, the majority of our money is in Lone Star, and that interest rate is only second to Ameritrade, but Ameritrade is the long-term investment that we're moving away from.
And this is the first time in a while we've actually yielded significant interest off of our investments.
Yes, sir. If you look back at your financial statements, you can see that our investment income for the year-to-date percentage last year, we were still negative, losing money based on the Ameritrade.
And briefly talk about estimates for interest revenue this year.
Well, the budget amendment that you approved earlier was for $400,000. We expect that we will exceed $500,000 in investment income this year based on the interest rates, the way the Fed has raised them. And it's more lucrative in the short-term investments than it is in the long-term. Plus, it's more liquid and we're able to get to it faster in an emergency.
Good.
Moving right along, you have a report of categorical purchases over $50,000 but less than $100,000. This is for the month of October. You can see there are two purchases, both of them from Caldwell County Chevy. They were both buy board contracts. The first one was for 2 utility vehicles, minivans. That was for our technology department. That was in $58,156. And then you can see the next one was a buy board for a Chevy Suburban for transportation at $52,145. And those were the categorical expenses over $50,000 but less than $100,000 that we are required to report to you. And that is my report for the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Whitefield. Then we are now at going into public comment for non-agenda. And up first, we have Ms. Donna Cole. Thank you, Ms. Cole. Next up, we have Mr. Dave Eagle. I was told he's left. Is that correct? All right. Then with no further business for the board, it is now 8:04, and I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.